DJ and PK on Friday, near the end of the show, we had David Locke on for his weekly visit, and he was asking us, when do you think Ace Bailey is going to be ready to take over as the number one option on the team? And after we answered, 2 or 3 years or whatever, he said, how about next February? Middle of next season, Ace Bailey could be the number one option. Possible? Impossible. Probable? Improbable. What do you think? Cam says, with his talent, it's definitely a possibility. The Jazz knew he was raw coming out of college, but the kid's come out and put in the work. I cannot wait to see what a full offseason with the Jazz staff will do. I'm predicting he'll be an all-star by year 3. Sign off on that right now, wouldn't you, PK? Take all-star year 3? It's done deal.
I don't see it.
Too early? Too much? Too soon?
I think him being the number one option by February, that's fantasy land. No way. There's just no way.
I thought in 3 years.
No.
I think Keontae's going to have the ball in his hands, and Markkanen and Jackson are going to get a lot of shots. It'll be an important piece, but I didn't see him as number one by the middle of next season.
Comparisons are to Donovan Mitchell. And when Donovan Mitchell came in the league, the Jazz, who'd they have on the team? They didn't have anybody who was capable of scoring. They had nobody. Alec Burks, Dante Exum, Favors, Gobert, Rodney Hood.
No.
I mean, I love Jonas Jerberko as much as anybody.
But
that wasn't happening. Howell, nothing but Neto. Sure. That's a nice little clever nickname. That was the year that David Stockton got in. And we remember him. Was he going to take over? No. So Mitchell was able to do that because they didn't have anybody else. Hayward had just left. And this next season, there is no way that Markkanen and Jaren Jackson are going to be deferring to Ace Bailey. There's just zero chance of that happening.
Joe Ingles isn't walking through that door. Joe was looking to get other people's shots.
They're going to look at him like, kid, you still got to pay your dues. That doesn't mean you're going to have big games, and they're not going to freeze him out. I'm not saying that. But Markkanen been waiting all this time, and now you're going to want him to defer? I want Markkanen to become the man next season. And with that becomes the responsibility that you don't sit over there in street clothes for 40 games like you've been doing every freaking year practically. And your nice hair is all looking modelish. I'm done with that. No. This guy's getting almost $50 million a year. He needs to buck up, and he needs to get his body in shape or mentally, whatever it takes, to be playing at least 70 games next year. And the gloves are going to come off as far as what Markkanen needs to do next season. I mean, we're done with he's a nice guy, and he likes it here, and he likes the outdoors. I couldn't give a flying you-know-what about that. He needs to show up, and he needs to ball at least 70 games unless he has some major injury. The days of him sitting there and smiling on the bench, I'm done with that. And that's got to stop. And he needs to have that mindset because he certainly has the skill set to go out there and be one of the, 15 best players in the league? Yeah, where much is given, much is expected. And he needs to ball next season. And with that, that means everybody else takes a secondary role. Because you can only have one man be the man, and it needs to be Markkanen.
Think there's a chance they gave the money to the wrong guy?
I don't know. There's a chance for anything.
Yeah. You think there's a likelihood?
If you have a broad question like that, yeah. I believe in his skill. I mean, I follow this kid. His only year in college, obviously, with Arizona. And I thought he was coming to Utah, too, until Arizona did what they did, and he went there. I mean, I don't blame him for that. But this guy has made millions. And I know some people don't want to hear about the money, but I do. And now is the time, or next season being the time. And this team has a chance to be really good, and they need him out there doing his thing.
The money's unavoidable. You only have so much of it to work with. More than ever, the NBA has drawn up that collective bargaining agreement. It's hard to weasel your way around and find more. You get up against the second apron, we've seen teams make hard decisions because they don't want to pay that luxury tax. So as much as you don't want to hear about the money, you've only got so much of it to work with. If you give it to the wrong guy, either because he isn't good enough when he plays or he doesn't play enough because the best ability is availability, then you give it to the wrong guy.
Well, I'm not ready to say that by any stretch. And then Jackson, I'm expecting a big season out of him.
Expect him to do what he does, 20-10.
I see no reason why not.
Show up again, do it again.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, that reduces the opportunities. Cooper Flagg goes to the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm watching that game last night.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the man. He's got the ball in his hands. He's taking all the shots, and great.
Yeah. He shows up, and it's the Donovan Mitchell situation where Hayward had just left, so the shots are available, and he shows up, and Doncic is gone, so the shots are available. Kyrie Irving is hurt, so the shots are available.
And he's pushing 6'10", so he's got all the skill in the world, so that's great. I've got no problem about that. And Ace Bailey, I just don't know if that's the right thing for this team next season to have that type of freedom. In order to be the number one option, that means you have the freedom to do what you see fit. And to me, that is more rebuild mode for Ace Bailey. And I'm being told we're done with rebuild mode. So I don't want to muzzle him or limit him, but at the same time, it has to be within the context of winning. If he can do all that in the season starts the end of October, so you basically have November, December, January. So you got about close to 4 months, and let's just say it's the end of October or the end of February, when Locke's in February. And the thing about
the All-Star break,
what Locke is talking about is he has to balance what he's told with what he says publicly. And he doesn't say stuff a lot that is without some foundational information. But he can't come out and say it because he's an employee of the team. So he has to straddle that line, and I respect that line, and I don't ever want to put him, certainly not in a public situation. If it's off to the side, that's another story. But I don't ever want to put him in a public situation because he doesn't have to come on with us every Friday, but he chooses to. So I don't want to put him in an awkward situation where he is giving up information that the powers that be don't want to be given up, right? So he has to straddle that line, and I respect that line that he has to straddle because he could just say, hey, I'm not coming on anymore, and I don't want that because we enjoy talking to him, and I think the listening public hears what he's saying. But I think he says stuff based from what other folk might say. Maybe in this case it's just his own observation, him and Ron Boone killing time before a game or in the coffee shop or on the airplane, whatever it might be. I get that. I've been there. I've done all that stuff. And so I can appreciate that. But I just think that under the circumstances, man, that just screams rebuild. And I don't know that I want that. And I don't think anybody wants that. We want to see this team make the postseason. Yeah. But I think he can still make significant progress. Yeah. But we're talking about the number one option here. We're not talking about number two.
I get why you bring up the rebuild. I just don't think that's a possibility. This has gone on so long. They're starting to get pushback from the ticket-buying public and from the fans. And the owner is as big a fan as anyone. Danny Ainge was joking and laughing because it was serious about Ryan asking him, when are we going to win, when are we going to win? That was in like year one. Ryan wants this as bad as all the fans. He grew up a Jazz fan playing junior Jazz basketball. There's a reason they're running those campaigns during the game. So I think if Ace Bailey's the guy next year, it's because either there's injuries and guys can't play, which will be its own problem, or because he's excelled. I don't think they're going to say, hey, let's make this guy the guy, and we'll go through the growing pains with him. I'd be surprised. I'd be really surprised if it plays out that way. He's got to be good enough to demand it. And the thing about Locke is that Locke not only talks to people at practice and, in the building and all that, but he's been doing this a long time. He knows all the broadcasters around the league. He knows a bunch of scouts around the league. So I wonder how much of this expectation from Ace comes from inside the organization. But you're right. He doesn't just fire stuff off, There's other people watching stuff around the league, and they're telling him stuff, and then he mulls it over. So it's some combination of stuff he thinks, and he may or may not be up in the night, but it's also stuff that a lot of other people think. And they may or may not, be on point and on target.
Yeah.
And they're betting on Ace getting a lot better.
And I am too. I see no reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what his work ethic is. We'll find out. I'm hoping it's strong. I have no reason to doubt that it isn't. But he has an opportunity to really solidify himself as a big-time player next season, and then beyond that, as that all-star. He asked us what we thought, and to me, Gordon Hayward, was an athletic guy, about this, maybe an inch or two shorter. Not quite as athletic, but I think few people are quite as athletic as Ace Bailey. But Hayward, when he was here in his prime, was a very good player. And I think that Ace Bailey's ceiling is higher than Gordon Hayward's, which that means he's an all-star. He left here as an all-star. It went south with the injury and other circumstances at Boston. But forget about that. What he was here, and he was legitimately an all-star for that one season, and if he would have stayed and had his health and everything, I think he would have continued to be that. So I see by year 3 or 4, certainly by 5, that's who Ace Bailey is. And then I've got these other guys here, Markkanen and Jackson. If they stay, you never know what's going to happen, but if they stay, they're not going to be. They may be a little bit beyond their absolute very best, but not that far, which means this team has a really great opportunity to be good for the next 5 to 7 years.
The interesting with Markkanen will be when he's on the floor and there's a lot of other guys who can score. Because back to your point about Mitchell, he's playing with guys who either could shoot but didn't really want to shoot, like Joe, guys who couldn't shoot, like Gobert, guys who really need to be within 10 feet of the hoop if they were going to shoot, like Rubio. I mean, they were what is it, ham and egg in it. They were really like trying to make all the pieces of the puzzle fit. Markkanen can go get 20 a game. Jackson can go get 20 a game. Keontae George can go get 20 a game. So the interesting thing is how all of that gets balanced. I'm leaning towards there's nobody at 25 a game next year. That was partly a product of you better force feed Markkanen, and he's done it, but he's done it on teams where there just weren't that many guys who could score. And he just hasn't played that many games this year with Keontae, and he hasn't played that many games this year with Jaren Jackson, to be sure. So we haven't really seen him, but when there's more guys who can score at a high level, and it's pretty easy to see how there's 4 guys who could get 20 points on any given night next year, how are any of them going to average 25 or whatever, which is where Donovan Mitchell went. But again, Mitchell he's playing with a couple guys who don't want to shoot, a couple guys who can't shoot, and pretty soon he's getting a ton of FGAs.
Yeah, I mean, in order to score, you got to get FGAs.